Let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Winston Marks, who writes, "Greetings, John and crew. In all the chatter about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, it seems like a major milestone has flown under the radar that no one is talking about. The movie just passed $700 million at the box office at the end of just its second weekend. How big is this?" All right, thanks a lot for sending in the question, man. And yeah, everybody knows by now I'm not a fan of The Rise of Skywalker, which is fine. I still love Star Wars. I still want future Star Wars stuff to be awesome, and I hope everybody else loves the movie. It is, however, a movie that didn't quite work for me. You guys know that, and that's totally fine. That's totally cool. Be that as it may, despite the fact, and we alluded to this a little bit last week, Rob, because some of the industry projections came out. We alluded to the fact that it looks like even though it's opened significantly behind, say, The Last Jedi's opening, that it looks like as the days have progressed, it's actually been making more money than The Last Jedi in its subsequent days. And now after 11 days, it's almost running neck and neck with The Last Jedi. It had a significantly better second weekend than The Last Jedi did percentage-wise. And as we look at the box office this weekend, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker made 72. Actually, it got adjusted up a little bit to 73 point something million on its second weekend, taking less than a 60% drop. And on these big major movies, you want to see somewhere between a 50 to 60% drop. It came in under a 60% drop. That Jumanji Next Level made 35 million. Little Women made 16.5, a really good showing for Little Women, by the way. Frozen 2 continues to print money for Disney at 16.5 million, and Spies in Disguise made 13.2. So Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker has now crossed that 700. I believe right now it's sitting at somewhere around $706 million at the end of just the second weekend. This is clearly a movie that will cross the $1 billion mark, as we always said it would. Won't make the $2 billion mark like we always said it wouldn't. But this is going to be yet another Star Wars film that crosses the $1 billion mark, which good for it. Good for it. I'm happy for its success. I'm really glad it did. Now, some people, Rob, I'm serious. I saw some debates online about some people saying, "Ha ha! The Rise of Skywalker dropped over $100 million from its first weekend to its second weekend. That almost never happens. Ha ha! What a failure." And they're not wrong in saying a movie dropping over $100 million from its first weekend to its second weekend almost never happens. They're right. It almost never does. Is that a huge failure? Well, let's take a look at the list, shall we, of all the films in cinematic history that have dropped over $100 million from week 1 to week 2, shall we? Let's take a look at this hall of failure. Well, Avengers Endgame holds the record for the biggest dollar drop from week 1 to week 2, with $209 million drop from week 1 to week 2. What a failure! Ha ha! That Avengers Endgame was. Star Wars: The Last Jedi dropped 148.1, obviously finished with well over $1 billion. Avengers Infinity War dropped $142.9 million. What a shame. Hang your head in shame, Avengers Infinity War. The Lion King dropped $115.2 million, obviously climbed over the $1 billion mark. Avengers Age of Ultron dropped $113 million. Captain America Civil War dropped $106 million. Star Wars, this one, The Rise of Skywalker, dropped $105.3 million drop. The other films rounding out the list, the original Avengers at 104, Incredibles 2 at 102, Jurassic World at 102, and Iron Man 3 at 101. All of these films, all of them, every single frickin' one, are in the $1 billion club. They are all in the $1 billion club. To drop $100 million, ha, what a failure. To drop $100 million from week 1 to week 2 tells you one inescapable thing: that the movie in question had a ridiculously large opening weekend. And, you know, Rob, we've been making the point for a couple of years that you have to expect these movies to have more of a profound drop from week 1 to week 2, because with such massive opening weekends, including The Rise of Skywalker, which had one of the largest opening weekends in cinematic history, that means almost everybody went to go see it on its first weekend, right, and you're going to get a significant drop. Now, look, is this the box? Is $700 million at the end of its second weekend? are those numbers that are going to get you to be a $2 billion film? No, it's not. But it's easily going to get it to $1 billion. Resting assured once again that Star Wars, particularly when it's an episodic film, but even if you're Rogue One, I suppose, Star Wars is a money franchise. And this movie's going to climb over the $1 billion mark again, despite all the naysayers beforehand who said, the next Star Wars Episode 9 is going to flop and it's going to be all this kind of stuff. It keeps on trucking. It's actually picking up momentum. So again, I think it'll come in around Last Jedi when it's all said and done, but it will crawl over that $1 billion mark again, and $700 million at the end of its second weekend ain't nothing to sneeze at. And this is a movie that I don't even like, but I want all films to succeed. Rob, you take a look at all these numbers. What's the stuff that stands out to you as you look at them?
Well, it just goes to show how perception is everything, and you should never take things at face value, because as you so graphically pointed out, that the movies that have the largest drop as far as $100 million goes, $100 millions of dollars, also became some of the biggest earners of all time, because they have to be that successful to be able to drop $100 million. Let me tell you, I think any filmmaker would want their movie to be able to lose or have $100 million difference from its opening weekend to its second weekend. It also shows something that I think bears repeating, that under Kathleen Kennedy's stewardship, Lucasfilm has made 5 movies, 4 of which have grossed $1 billion plus. That's insane. That kind of a track record, I don't know, I haven't looked, but other than Kevin Feige, what other franchise can boast those numbers? I don't think any franchise can boast those numbers.
Because we made rightfully so, we made a big deal out of the fact that when Marvel, it took them 20-something movies to get to, but still, when Marvel got to the point where now Marvel, as you look at the whole MCU, they almost average $1 billion a film. And we
over
made
23 movies. If you average it out, it is $1 billion for a film.
And we made a very big deal about that, rightfully so. Under Kathleen Kennedy, and I have my criticisms. Everybody knows that they're well documented what my criticisms are. But on the other side of the coin is, under her, they've made 5 motion pictures, and they are averaging over $1 billion per film.
Yeah.
And if we're going to laud, and rightfully so we should, like the accomplishment of Kevin Feige to do that with his franchise, we've got to at least tip the cap. We've at least got to tip the cap to Star Wars for doing that. Are these films anywhere near the level of the original trilogy? Of course not. No, they're not. But to come in and do that, hey, and I'm not a fan of The Rise of Skywalker, but give, it its due. It's a pretty impressive mark. It is a pretty impressive mark, particularly for a series of films that some would argue have been pretty divisive. At least a couple of them have been. And when you can have that and still say, yeah, in my swash at this franchise, 5 films in, I'm averaging over $1 billion per tick. Given that it's been pretty divisive, that's impressive.
I mean, in Hollywood history, you've got a success. What people forget is because Star Wars has become a lore and a mythology that people have grown up with. They've internalized it. I know I have. Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, R2, 3PO. These aren't just movie characters. These are part of my life. These are characters that I've internalized into my very being. So we don't look at Star Wars, I think, rationally a lot of the time. But from a business perspective, after all, movies are product that companies are selling to the populace. And from that perspective, forget what I might think of them, forget how I think the characters are treated, but as product to be sold by a company, Disney's pretty happy. They've made a lot of money, and you cannot deny that.
And again, it's totally fair game for us to debate the individual quality merits of each one of the films. I've got my criticisms. You've got your that's a different subject. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's doing pretty damn well for itself. So the question is, guys, What do you think about that? What do you think about the fact that it took over $100 million drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2? How do you feel about it hitting $700 million at the end of its second weekend? Jump down into its comment section and let us know what you guys think. All right.